So at the end of your workday, something interesting often happens. You close your laptop or turn off the computer and you leave the office, and eventually you sit down to relax. But even though the day is technically over, your mind is still working. You might suddenly remember an email you meant to send, or a conversation you still need to follow up on, or something you meant to finish before the day ended. If that happens to you, that experience is completely normal. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Hi, I'm Dr. Cheryl, and many of the people I work with are what we call helping professionals, people whose work revolves around supporting others. That may include educators, medical professionals, mental health professionals, or people that are in human services like teachers, nurses, and counselors, and coaches, and social workers, and case managers. People who spend their days solving problems, supporting others, and carrying a lot of responsibility. And I hear a similar experience from them again and again. Even when the workday ends, their minds just keeps working. There is usually one more thing they meant to do, one more person they are still thinking about, or one more task they need to remember for tomorrow. Sometimes it looks like this. A teacher finishes the school day and goes home, but later that evening, she suddenly remembers a student she wanted to check in with the next day. Or a nurse who finishes a shift and finds herself wondering how one of her patients is doing that night. Or maybe you're a counselor and you leave the office, but a conversation from earlier in the day keeps replaying in your mind. Nothing is technically wrong. The workday is over, but part of the mind is still holding on to the work. And by the end of the day, feeling drained is not always about how much you did. Often it has more to do with what is unfinished. And so when something doesn't have a clear ending or a next step, your brain continues tracking it. Maybe there is an email you still need to answer, or a report you paused halfway through and you still need to pick it up, or a decision you haven't quite made yet. Or maybe it's a conversation that still needs following up. When something like that remains unfinished, your brain keeps reminding you, almost like it's a quiet message in the background that says, don't forget this. And it does that even when you are trying to rest. That ongoing mental tracking uses attention. It takes up headspace, and oftentimes that quiet mental tracking starts to drain your energy. This is why you can reach the end of the day and feel exhausted even when the day itself didn't seem overwhelming. It's not always the workload. Sometimes it's the unfinished mental tracking your brain has been carrying all day. I call this experience a mental carryover. A mental carryover happens when unfinished work continues to occupy your attention even after the workday ends. Your brain keeps checking on it even when you are trying to relax. Researchers actually have a name for this, and they call it attention residue. Attention residue simply means that part of your attention remains attached to a previous task when you try to move on to something else. If you pause for a moment, you might even notice examples of this in your own day. Maybe you were sitting in a meeting while still thinking about an email that you needed to send. Or maybe you were at home in the evening, but part of your mind was still replaying something that happened earlier at work. That is attention residue. Your brain is still holding on to a task that never received a clear ending. And over time, what happens is that mental carryover begins to quietly drain your energy. Eventually, it can start to show up as chronic stress or burnout. This is why someone can finish the day and feel surprisingly exhausted, even when the day itself didn't seem overwhelming. Their mind has been holding unfinished work open in the background. This is where something simple can make a real difference. It is a practice I call a brain bookmark. A brain bookmark is a single sentence that marks where your mind can return to later. Instead of carrying unfinished work mentally, you leave yourself a clear place to resume. For example, you might write something like, draft finished. Tomorrow I will review and send by 3 p.m. Or you might write, client file update. I'm waiting for paperwork before scheduling a follow up. That one sentence tells your brain something very important. The work is not forgotten. It has a place to continue. And when your brain knows where something will resume, it no longer has to keep tracking it in the background. And over time, this simple practice protects your attention and helps build self trust because you are creating a clear return point for your future self. Less mental clutter is taking place and more usable energy is happening, and you have a better chance of actually leaving work at work, because sometimes the thing that drains us the most is not the work itself. It's carrying unfinished work in our mind long after the day has ended. And one clear sentence can interrupt that pattern. One clear sentence can reduce the mental carryover and help you leave work at work. It's small, it's intentional, and it's steady. And once you start noticing mental carryover, you begin to see it everywhere in your day. The good news is that you don't need a complicated system to interrupt it. Sometimes all it takes is the right sentence at the right moment. In the next video, I want to walk you through even 7 simple brain bookmarks, and that they'll be able to help you to leave work at work. Sounds like a good idea? I think so. All right, see you in the next video.